All right, welcome back. Outrage from the woke mob as the Vatican releases a new statement on gay marriage today. Take a look. It is not licit to impart a blessing on relationships or partnerships, even stable, that involve sexual activity outside of marriage, as is the case of the unions between persons of the same sex. Furthermore, since blessings on persons are in relationship with the sacraments, the blessing of homosexual unions cannot be considered licit. Basically, they talk in a weird way at the Vatican. Church is saying that same-sex unions are a choice, describing them as sinful, and said that they cannot be recognized as objectively ordered to God's plans. Once thought of as the cool Pope, remember that headline, is the Pontiff. The Pope, now in danger of being canceled himself. There's a lot of people mad about this. Here to share his thoughts on all this is Michael Knowles, host of the Michael Knowles Show and author of the upcoming book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. Michael, welcome to you. For I guess, some reason, this came as a real surprise to a lot of people on Twitter, I think especially after what the Pope had said in the past. What was your reaction to all this?
Well, I think this was shocking news to people who don't know anything about the Catholic Church. For those of us who know even, 2 seconds worth of the catechism, we would know that, of course, this is in keeping with the 2,000-year tradition of the church and the church's teaching on one of the most fundamental issues, which is marriage. I think here actually what is at play is not so much an ignorance of the church's teaching. I think people know basically where the church stands, but it was, as you said earlier, some confusion on where the Pope stood, and perhaps this pontificate has some responsibility for that confusion. But moreover, it is a confidence on the part of liberal journalists that eventually, no matter our beliefs, we are all going to surrender those beliefs to the dictates of liberal secular modernity. That this idea that eventually we're all going to just give up, right, and agree with them. And then when the Pope stands by 2,000 years of teaching, that is considered extraordinary because our culture has lost its mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was funny that it was surprising to people. But he did have comments in the past that kind of thought maybe he was okay with being gay. And I think that was the surprising thing, is when he said that, right?
Right. I think the issue is this confusion here.
Yeah.
And that has been the hallmark of Francis's papacy. It's not so much outright heresy, though there are many questions that very respected cardinals and theologians have raised, famously dubia, doubts that were raised by some members of the episcopacy that Pope Francis has not yet answered. So that does raise some serious questions. But what it more is this culture of confusion. And I think that aspect of the pontificate comes at a very difficult time for the West broadly, for all of Christendom, because we are so confused. I mean, we can no longer state with certainty in the West that a man is not a woman, right? We're confused on these most fundamental aspects of our nature. So some clarity would be great, and I think that Pope Francis and the Vatican issuing the statement could go a long way toward bringing us that clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to switch gears here for just a second. After the longtime host, Chris Harrison, was canceled last week, The Bachelor, we're talking about that, for defending a former contestant who apparently, and if I didn't hear that wrong in my ear, has just won The Bachelor. Is that right, Booth? Can you just... Okay, yeah, this girl, actually, that he defended, Rachel Kirkconnell, I think is what they said in the name. I don't follow the show. I couldn't care less about the show. But apparently she just won the show. But that's a side note. The Bachelor announcing that the former NFL linebacker Emmanuel Acho will be stepping in, at least temporarily, to take over the hosting duties for the After the Final Rose wrap-up show. He appeared on Stephen Colbert's show. Here's what he had to say. Okay, we don't have it, but he talked a little bit about cancel culture, made some comments that maybe he doesn't. Okay, now we have it. Let's go ahead and listen to it.
Yeah, I don't believe in cancel culture. I do believe in accountability. And so I think that right now he is taking accountability for his actions.
Okay, so that was actually an interesting statement. What do you think about that?
I think it's actually a very important point. I don't think that the central feature of cancel culture and PC and political correctness, I don't think it's a battle between free speech and censorship so much as it's a battle between competing sets of standards. So, of course, we all think that there should be accountability. In the 1950s, if you openly espoused communism, you would be canceled in Hollywood or in the federal government, and I think that's perfectly right and just. The question here is, what are people being canceled for? This host of The Bachelor, I, like you, can't say that I've seen every single episode of that show, but what this host got canceled for was saying that maybe we should have grace, understanding, and compassion for things that people did years ago, like going to a party in college. That's all he said. But unfortunately, this guy made every wrong decision here. He, I thought, very rightly stood up for the girl and was gallant and chivalrous. But the minute that he thought he was going to lose his job, he threw her under the bus. He apologized for defending Grace. He thought that he could appease the mob, and that was just never going to happen.
I mean, the story was so ridiculous. The girl just went to a party in college that was a Southern-themed party years ago, and just defend. I mean, she doesn't even deserve to be criticized for that. I mean, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then on top of everything, the beauty of it is that apparently the Bachelor this season is a black guy, and he just picked her, which I think just negates the whole thing. Now I actually kind of like the show, and I kind of think he made a big statement with that too. I mean, well, I guess they filmed this stuff before, right? So maybe he didn't know all this stuff. I don't know how this show works, so I'm missing out here. Maybe it was filmed too long ago, but I'm trying to figure out The Bachelor as I go along. It's not easy.
This really is a sort of Hollywood ending to it all. Maybe they were just doing it for the ratings, but I suspect they weren't. I suspect that what's really at play here is that this host thought, okay, we live in a culture, I forgive, you accept my apology, okay, we're all good. That's just not how it works anymore. We've lost that aspect of our civilization. The mob is so hungry for resentment, grievance, and revenge that the only thing you can do is keep your dignity, and unfortunately, the people who grovel to the mob don't do that.
You're absolutely right. I have to say that I'm going to have to go watch an episode of The Bachelor. I'll probably have to take a couple shots of whiskey before I do it, but I will suffer through that at some point, just to say that I did. And Michael Knowles, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, let me know how it is. Thank you.
Don't get your hopes up. All right, thanks, Mike.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.